Hello and welcome to this week's segment on Women of Significance in STEM series of conversations. My name is Leah Zallens and I am the founder and lead coach for Z-Axis Leadership Consultancy. And I am interviewing women who are creating success for themselves in a field that currently and has always been dominated by men. And we still see today that there is lack of equal representation. We see it in a gender pay gap disparity. We see it in racial disparity and cultural disparity. And so in spite of these systemic barriers, there are women who are beating the odds. And today's conversation, we are looking at the career path and the success secrets and ways of working within these difficult environments. And today we have with us Stephanie Lamont Friedrich from Deloitte. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hello, Leah. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
You have a very strong background. You have a PhD in biomaterial engineering and nanomedicine. And so you have, it is a mouthful, and you also have a background in medical science.
Yes.
And here you are working in a corporate landscape as an analyst with Deloitte. So start with you telling us a little bit about what you do, what problem that solves, and then how you came to be doing that.
Yes, great. Okay, so firstly, I guess I'll start. So after I finished high school, I started a degree actually in veterinary science. I wanted to be a vet. I did that for about 12 months and realized it wasn't for me. I moved into a double degree of science and teaching. I did another 6 months of that and realized it wasn't for me. At the time too, I think it's quite scary to change degrees, and you kind of have this vision that you'll go into one thing and you'll stay into it forever. Where I am now, my journey has just continued to evolve. I don't think I've ever stayed on the path that I thought that I would intentionally stay on. I then took 6 months off to work full time because I wanted to see what that was like. I hated that at the time, but it did give me an opportunity to save and travel. And I then moved into a degree in medical science at Flinders Uni. I also then did a double degree. So I did a Bachelor of Business and Technology as well. And again, by taking on, I guess, that new opportunity of the second degree, it opened up an opportunity for me to do a 20-week internship. And at the time, I was placed with the Mawson Institute at Uni SA. It was a paid internship, which was, spectacular at that time. And I guess that was when my journey, I guess, really kind of started. That was when, the fork in the road that I took was probably where it all kind of started. So at the time, my senior lecturer was extremely supportive. She put me in contact with the Mawson Institute to do this internship. She recognised where my passions were and my skills were, and she kind of aligned this internship for me and said, Steph, I have this brilliant internship. What do you think? It was developing surface coatings, as well as then being a microbiologist and testing different fungi and bacteria in the lab against the new surface coating, which was perfect because my two specializations at uni were microbiology and then biomedical engineering. So I jumped at the chance, and I went into it, I guess, with the idea that I would work as hard as I could, I would network as much as I could, I would do the best job possible in hope that I would have an opportunity to do an honours degree with them. So 20 weeks later, my supervisor and I worked incredibly hard. He was incredibly supportive as well. Immediately, it was just a really good environment. I ended up being able to publish my work from that. It was, I guess, in terms of an internship, it was very successful. I had a great time and I learned a great deal. And then it also ended up turning into an honours opportunity. So I guess I went into it thinking if I work really hard here, this might give me the opportunity to do an honours, which prior to that, I hadn't quite known how to get into. So I guess that led me into my honours, and I completed an honours degree in Bio and Nanomaterials, where I still developed a surface coating, but this time the surface coating was for non-biomedical devices. It was a chlorinated coating that for me was for applications like water and air filtration. So things like improving HEPA filters, not just capturing or filtering bacteria and fungus, but killing them upon contact. So I always was very focused on the translation of my research, and I guess
I was
I
going to
started
pick that
to,
up.
yeah,
Yeah.
I started to notice the difference. You know, I was constantly thinking, how could we apply this? I took on the second degree as well of business and technology at Flinders because for me it was an opportunity to see, you know, why science would be funded. So it was from the perspective, you know, yes, I love science and yes, I love research, but how do I make sure that, you know, one, it could be translatable, it could be commercialized, and how could it have a real world impact? And I think the second degree, the business degree for me, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved that side of science. And then I guess I just accidentally almost carried that through with me. And it wasn't until a couple of years later that I realized I was constantly focused on, you know, the commercialization and translation. And, you know, then I thought, okay, if I do really well in my honours year, I'm going to get into a PhD. You know, I really was focused on that too. I thought, I'm going to try my hardest here. Once again, I had just brilliant supervisors, very supportive supervisors. I worked very hard. I finished top of my class and I got first round offer of PhD and scholarship. So I was
Well
awarded an APA
done.
scholarship. Thank you. At the time, it was just massive achievement. I still remember, you know, receiving the email from my supervisor saying, "Guess what, Steph? Congratulations!" My mum and I were so excited. And then my PhD, like you said, was in biomaterials engineering and nanomedicine, where I spent 4 years again, just further developing surface coatings, but this time having more of a microbiology focus on the attachment or non-attachment of fungal cells to the surface coating, and in a
So,
bit more detail.
yeah, I'm curious to hear, Stephanie, clearly high achievement, outcomes focused, like you say, what's the so what of science? What's going to make science get funded? That
Yes.
that's what is going to make science get funded, because we need to communicate that to the people with
Yes.
the money.
Yes, exactly
Right?
right. And I
So
think
that's,
that's what started
yeah.
to happen. Yeah, so throughout my
Mm.
PhD, I started to, I joined a number of different clubs and committees. I think I started to realize that just at the lab, like within the lab, you know, my personality, I was just getting a little bit bored, and I wanted to be involved in science but differently, and so I, you know, to the support of some of my other mentors, you know, I was told, you know, join some professional societies, join some clubs, you know, like it'll really help. So I did. I joined Australian Society for Microbiology, the Australasian Society for Biomaterials and Tissue Engineering, and you know, that's been now I think nearly 7 years of membership through them. And you know, I put my hand up for TEDx. I was a co-organizer for TEDx for UniSA. I organise a booth at Science Alive every year for the ASM, which is basically communicating science and the fun of science to children, which I adore. You know, I just absolutely love doing that. So it all just kind of evolved itself as I continued to put my hand up for every kind of opportunity that came my way, or
Yeah.
I just started seeking more opportunities. I guess I didn't realize, but I was starting to build maybe different skills that I then realized is where I'm more passionate.
So where did that come from? Like the curiosity for science and the appreciation and passion for business as a science. You know,
Yeah,
that's
so
it's a lovely phrase actually that you coined right there. You love the science of business. So
yes,
really integrating the two as one. But where
absolutely.
does that stem from? Like from your background, or tell me a bit about your family background.
Yeah, well, honestly, it doesn't really stem from my family background. My brother he works in finance, so him and I would often have conversations around funding, you know, the pharmaceutical pipeline, you know, funding of new pharmaceuticals, you know, new ideas. We would often have really good conversations around that. My brother is very, you know, finance minded. He's very, you know, he's very good at mathematics. He's very good at, he's a bit more risk. He takes a bit more risk than I do, for example. So we always would have really good conversations, and I guess I'm not sure. I think I don't believe it kind of stemmed from anything. I think it actually was just internally a part of maybe my personality or a part of my passion. You know, my mum always tells me, as long as she can remember, I've always asked her why. You know, I would be tiny and, you know, kept asking her, why does it do that? Why do we do that? You know, and she said, I used to be able to answer why, and then you just got older, and I thought, I can't answer why. So I used to, you know, check the encyclopedias myself at home when I was really young to find out why. And I think it just was internal. It was just a part of my personality, this kind of research-driven why. And I guess the translation itself, yeah, I guess I'm not quite sure, but it is interesting to compare, because obviously being in academia, you know, everyone around you always asks why. They're researchers, you know, but they have different passions, and that's, you know, maybe being in the lab, or maybe that's more about the building blocks of knowledge. So yeah, it was kind of, it started to become more apparent as I continued to study that I was looking translation wise. Yeah.
And this is where you have the appreciation and the knowledge, both in the science, in the research, and in the business and technology. So tell us a bit about how you came to work with Deloitte, because it sounds like you've really married both of those passions and those skill sets.
Yes.
And you also mentioned that it was not an easy road to translate that into those conversations that would take you into a corporate role. So I'd love to explore, you know, your experience of that. And
yeah, well, so I guess as I was kind of fumbling my way through my PhD, like we all do, my supervisors started to realize maybe that my passion laid in the commercialization and the translation. So they nominated me to take part in the IMNIS program, and at the time this was quite new for UniSA. But the woman that I was partnered up with, who became my mentor, had a PhD, but she was translational. So it was almost, you know, just a perfect marriage. We just, you know, got paired together, and we were really well suited. We had similar backgrounds, even similar families. We had similar drives. We had similar goals. And I got really fortunate in that mentor, who still is my mentor and friend. And you know, for the first time to sit and discuss with someone who had similar goals to me, you know, I started realizing all the potential and opportunities. And it was her, actually, I remember having even, I think, our first coffee, and she said to me about building my brand and the difference between even an academic CV and a, you know, a commercial or industry CV, you know, the difference in communicating your science and your skills.
tell me again the two categories of brand.
So academia, for example, so if you were applying for, you know, postdoc positions and you know, things like that, versus applying for a corporate or industry position, how to sell your skills differently, and what, you know, each employee is after is different. And for me, that was kind of a light bulb moment. I thought I'd been kind of blindly doing all of this, but I didn't realize that there was a purpose to it. I just was kind of following my gut and following maybe my passion and my interest, but I didn't realize that it was leading to something. And then she just kind of, brought it all together for me. And I thought, okay, this makes sense. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. So for example, having a bachelor's and your honors and PhD, that's all really great. But in terms of maybe applying for an industry or corporate type job, they want to see where your skills were applied. They want to see, you know, real examples of communication, of problem solving, you know, motivation, of all of those types of skills that you do acquire in higher education. But it's the communication of them. I started to hear all through my PhD, actually, as well, I did hear it's so difficult to translate your skills from academia to industry. There's a huge gap between academia and industry. There's a big divide. But I started to realize I think it's worded wrong. It's not a translation of skills from academia to industry that's the difficulty. It's the communication of the translation of skills. It's the understanding of how corporate and industry can leverage our skills that we develop during higher education. And I think I started to realize that. And I think, like everyone, you go into things young and naive and you think, no, it'll be fine. But I did start to realize, no, this is difficult. You really need to communicate this clearly. You know, you really need to have a think about where these skills can be applied and how it can benefit each industry differently.
And be speaking in the language of the person
Yes.
you're talking to. And that's the value piece, the missing piece that your IMNIS mentor was able to make you aware of, and then also guide you through the process of the how to.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of focus today on bring your whole self to work and be your authentic self. That's all well and good. And we need to communicate in the language of our environment,
Yes.
of our community, both within the organization and to the
Yep.
audience to whom we're speaking. And
I
that's
agree.
not a skill set that is covered in a science degree. Put the A into STEAM, or how do we incorporate more of that if we put
Yep.
communication more in the arts bucket? Yeah, it sounds like you've had and you've chosen some really good mentors. You are matching on values, you're matching on beliefs, and you're also looking for what you need to learn and who you can learn from.
Yep. But I guess
So
that's
what,
difficult
yeah.
when you don't know yourself, when you don't know the path you want to go down as well, that's incredibly difficult. And, it took until my PhD and this, fantastic IMNIS program, which really was for me a real kind of, game changer, path shifter, for me
Well,
to realize maybe.
tell us a little bit about the IMNIS program, because I think that's always great to reflect back on an investment you made in
Yeah.
a program as such. Yes.
Well, I guess so, how we just kind of discussed this gap, but also this gap throughout your PhD, throughout your honours. There's no current, as far as I'm aware anyway, through my experience, there was no real exposure for me within the university environment to test my skills of, communicating my science in a really different way, or to, like you said, to explain to a 10-year-old, for example. They're not skills that you're given throughout. They're kind of skills that you have to figure it out for yourself or push and find them if that's something that you're interested in. But I guess that was where a lot of my clubs and committees, I think that's why I really loved them, because I realized that the skills I was learning, but then also applying, I was actually really passionate about. I really loved sitting down with an 8-year-old and for the first time showing them how to look through a microscope. I took that as something incredible to be there for their first time of, looking down a microscope, because I remember when I was a child and how much I really loved, the Investigator Science Centre, and I was really into my science back then and I loved the fun of it. And I really think that there is a bit of an issue amongst the university structure with not having any subjects that kind of allow for that. Even if you tried it and hated it, that's okay too. But, there's no current room to try it and test your skills and see what you think. So I guess the IMNIS program was something that filled a bit of this gap, which was incredible. And I was nominated by my supervisor, to my primary supervisor, who was just, one of the, most greatest supportive men. He was just amazing, still is. And he was a real mentor and guide for me as well. And so he said, Steph, I've put you forward for this IMNIS program. A few of my other PhD friends he put forward as well. And we all did it together. And I guess that's the thing. They, for example, stayed in academia. They've done their postdoc, they're doing postdocs at the moment. So we all were exposed to the same, the same experience, but we all took different things from it, which is, why you're supposed to be exposed to as many experiences and opportunities as possible, So for me, it just was a real light bulb moment. And I think I got partnered though with the most brilliant mentor. I think I got really fortunate in how they matched up our surveys that we did. I got really fortunate because she just got me immediately. And she still does. I still call her and have conversations with her about the correct terms to use, how best to ask something. She's just, been that. And I hope that then one day I'll be able to do the same thing. That's a real goal for me as well, to be able to do the same.
How many mistakes has she helped you not make?
Yes.
Because that's
Yeah.
the learning of someone who has trodden the path before, or who can perhaps also see where you might stumble and preempt that. But you
Exactly.
are also, this innate sort of curiosity, but you also have the boldness to ask, Stephanie. You have the boldness to be seen and heard in the room. And this is so important. So I'd love to hear about your journey of developing your personal brand.
So for me, the personal brand awareness, I guess, it changed everything when someone first told me about LinkedIn. I prior to that, a number of years ago still now, but I didn't really know much about LinkedIn. I didn't really understand what it was used for. And then I was told, no, get a LinkedIn account and start, formulating your brand. And I thought, what is this? Because I was doing all the activities. I was, volunteering at everything. I was, lunchtimes after uni, etc. I was doing all these things, but I wasn't posting it somewhere. And I thought, no, this is a bit self-indulgent. I don't want to be posting, look at me, look how great I am. I'm going to all these events and I'm doing these things. I just really, felt uncomfortable with that because I thought I'm doing it regardless of if I'm posting it or who sees it. And then, obviously LinkedIn became more of something that was a really useful platform and tool. It also connects you with other people.
So why was it uncomfortable for you?
Yeah, I guess I've been, always doing kind of these extra things, even all through primary school and high school. And so for me, it was never anything kind of, I didn't think, why should I post it and show everyone what I'm doing and tell everyone, wow, look what I'm doing. I don't know. I felt a bit uncomfortable, but I had to really get over that mentally. I really had to just say, no, Steph, like you need to build your brand, and it's okay to show people what you're passionate about, what you care about, what you're willing to sacrifice, personal time for. Like that's okay. And it's also things I enjoy. So it's okay to show people, that you enjoy doing these extra things and that you enjoy being a part of these clubs and committees. And it also might help the next woman who sees it, the next girl who sees it, the next boy who sees it. So you've got to do it. You have to.
So how did you get over the, I don't want, what's the point? Or, what was the thing that got you past your discomfort?
Yeah, I guess we started the Women in STEM Club at UniSA. So prior to that, UniSA hadn't had a Women in STEM Club. So we were the founding executive committee. And, for that, I was put in, a room of like-minded kind of individuals who all had, different stories, but then similar stories. They all had different goals, similar goals, but it was a really supportive network. And so, for the first time I was, saying to them, so I'm doing this tonight or etc. And they were cheering me on, they were like, that is amazing, Steph, like that's great. Like they were so supportive. And I thought, okay, they're not thinking, stop showboating or anything. They're actually supporting me and think it's fantastic and want to know, how did I find out about that event? Or, how did I sign up for that thing? So I think I started to feel really supported. And I guess I started to think too, every time I looked at someone's LinkedIn and saw what they were up to, I never thought it was showboaty or, that it was self-indulgent. I thought, wow, that's fantastic. How do I get involved? So then I thought, no, you need to get over it, Steph, and you need to start building your brand. It's important. And so, yeah, I guess I just forged ahead.
And so what was important about building your brand?
Yeah, I guess I wanted to communicate who I was and what I was passionate about. A lot of the times too, when you sit down, and even if it's an interview for employment, it's a very small snapshot of who you are and what your drives are, what your goals are, what your motivations are. And I guess in terms of LinkedIn, I really enjoyed building my brand, and sometimes I enjoy looking back on it too and looking at some of the things I've taken part in and some of the experiences, and and none of this comes without huge sacrifice, because it does. It's a lot of extra time. It's a lot of extra energy. Yeah, it's a lot of extra money. It's a lot of extra. But, I look back on it and I feel really proud. And I feel, yeah, that it's letting people know out there, what I'm interested in, what I love, what I'm passionate about, regardless of the motivation isn't employment or it isn't money. It's actually just, self-fulfillment, it's excitement, it's learning, it's growth, it's challenges. And I guess I wanted to communicate that they're all the things that actually really drive me. They're all the things that are important to me.
And what I'm also hearing too, Steph, is that you have an appreciation, and again, it's something that was highlighted to you by your mentors, that you've got to build your brand and you've got to get on LinkedIn. And because there is no one way to build your brand or get on LinkedIn as such, but knowing and recognizing that often we do have those feelings of discomfort when we put ourselves out there, because what you're describing is your journey of putting yourself out there. And the women that I coach, it's this fear of being seen, fear of being judged, fear of, what if I'm criticized for putting my opinion out there, or what if no one even cares? But like you say, it is about firstly, understanding and knowing what is important to you, what you value, what excites you, what represents value to you. And then you share, and then it's those who resonate with you that also will see what's possible. And if you can help one person by sharing your experience, it's like that video of a boy collecting starfish on the beach and throwing them back in the water. And the old man says, oh, well, there's so many of them, you can't possibly save them all. He says, no, but I can save some. The ones I save are the ones that at least I'm making a contribution. So clearly there's an innate quality and value for you of contribution, of giving, of sharing. And it also plays into one of the challenges I also see with a lot of hardworking women, and particularly in science and tech environments, is that the beavering away of the work, and it's almost like an expectation that the work will speak for itself. The work does not speak for itself. And it's wonderful in today, again, with social media, and we've got different databases and different initiatives that, again, that's how we connected. Was I found you on Women of STEM Australia website, which is a fabulous initiative, again, to give you a place to showcase and network and have your list of achievements. And this is where interviews like this and posting on LinkedIn, and particularly video communication, it actually helps you bring your whole person into the picture, and going to encourage more younger girls to choose science, and then once they go into science, to stay in science. So we need to have role models like yourself that will be seen, and not just will be seen, but will be heard. So communicating in ways that an 8-year-old can understand, communicating in ways that a politician can understand or a journalist can understand, because again, that's how the so what of the science then becomes relatable to the non-science world. So so I think that there's so much about what you're doing is really to be celebrated, and because you're role modeling already yourself how we then accelerate the process of more investment, both in manpower and finances and attention, into the innovation work that needs to happen so we can have the future of tomorrow. We see that the fabric of our work society, our work cultures, corporations, universities, everything is in a state of flux. And in a state of flux, this is an opportunity to create new norms and new cultures. So what would you say would be your biggest challenges today?
So that's a great question. I guess as well, in a COVID world, things are changing more rapidly than I guess I felt like they were prior as well. Currently, I'm trying to think, challenge-wise, I guess it's, so that move out of academia into corporate, firstly, was a challenge, but it also was a chance. A challenge is just a chance to learn new things. And for me, that was a chance to just acquire new skills.
A challenge is a chance to learn new things.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was for me. So it was, it was just a massive challenge, but a great chance to acquire some new skills as well. And, at the end of the day, it builds me. It builds myself personally as well as professionally. And that's a benefit as far as I'm concerned. That is a win. So the move into corporate was difficult, even interviews, having to really communicate what I do. If people have not done a PhD, they don't really understand the types of technical skills that you acquire throughout. Some of the things we mentioned before, like persistence for problem solving, risk management, even the ability to communicate your science, whether that's at a national conference. I got to present my work in Zurich in Switzerland, for example, to experts from all around the world, or whether that's at Science Alive presenting it to an 8-year-old who doesn't understand what bacteria is for the first time. So it's all important. And when I moved, I guess when I transitioned into the corporate world, I guess at the beginning, or still people keep asking me, why did you do a PhD and then move into corporate? Why didn't you just finish off your honors or something and then move straight into the corporate world? Why would you do that? But for me, it was a personal achievement. To complete a PhD, how lucky am I? I'm the first person in my whole family to complete a PhD. What an honor to have the opportunity to do that. And how is that going to change, I guess, my impact on the world, but also the impact on my family and when I have children? How will that change? And so I guess the challenge day to day is probably just still communicating how to leverage your PhD skills, and I guess making people realize that you can actually apply it to a multitude of different areas, even personally. So I think that's probably a constant challenge, but I think that's, that would be a challenge for just people moving industries, moving from one sector to another.
It is. It's like a growing recognition of the value of a STEM educated, STEM trained professional. And this is where I think the PhD element gives you that you've gone deep, deep, deep research, questioning, and the thoroughness of your process around one research question. There is so much value to that in terms of how that translates to what an evidence-based approach, what is
Absolutely.
a data-based approach to decision making, and for ethics and for due diligence.
Absolutely.
It is the attention to detail while still being able to have your eye on the prize. That's the value of leaders like yourself who have that passion and that appreciation for the value of communication and the depth of research, and then the way that you approach problem solving. It's the how of problem solving and the how of communicating, the how of translating. And personally for me, I'm very excited that I think our future is in really good hands with more leaders like yourself who are multifaceted, multi-talented, and you have so much energy to give to all the volunteer work that you do in that community space, in building the vision and the potential for those coming after you, as well as building your own career. And so we've got a couple of minutes left. If you had advice for your younger self, say 10 years ago, like what do you know now that you wish you had have known then?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I guess I would more quickly tell myself to be proud of your achievements. Don't wait until you're a bit older. Be proud straight away. It's okay to be proud of what you've achieved. It's okay that you've sacrificed a lot, that you've worked really hard. It's okay to say that and to be proud that something came of it. That's okay. And I tell every girl that I kind of come across too, in terms of a lot of these volunteering events, give me the opportunity and platform to chat with other females that might be 5 years younger than me. They might be the same age as me. They might be 10 years younger than me. And I tell them, be proud of this. This is great. Congratulations. This is spectacular. You should be really proud. I really do tell them that this is fantastic. Be proud of it. Because I think that was something that, regardless of my mum, my mum's so supportive, and regardless of her telling me, Stephanie, be proud, I'm so proud of you. I love you. It took me a couple of years, I guess, to actually feel that myself, to actually be confident enough to, put my face on a poster and quote myself. And when I was standing there looking at that poster, seeing Dr. Stephanie Lamont Friedrich, for me, that had felt like a pipe dream for such a long time. It's something that you put your head down and you just work towards, and you don't really look up. This whole idea of success and happiness being on the other side of success, and never stopping to smell the roses, which I'm really terrible for doing. So in that moment, I just stopped and I thought, just look at the poster, Steph, just for a second, just enjoy this and just be proud of this, and see Dr. Stephanie Lamont Friedrich on a poster at the uni in my science outfit. And that was actually in my lab. That was my lab coat. They were my lab goggles. And and I thought,
love it.
Be proud, Steph. This is great. And I hope that every single person that walks past that, now it normalizes that it's a female in science. Normal now. It's okay. It's normal. Girls will walk past and they'll see it and they'll think, and eventually I hope they think nothing of it. Eventually I hope they don't think that's a female. I hope they just walk past and think, because it's become so normalized that we don't need clubs and we don't need initiatives and we don't need programs. And that's really what I hope for. And being made the face of science and maths for UniSA on their website, for me, that was a huge achievement too. And I think it's not about that. I don't actually care if it was my face or someone else's face. It was about every time now someone Googles to apply for science or maths at UniSA, subconsciously it will be a female. That just might start to change the internal narrative and the dialogue. Like, it just will start to change it, which I'm just really proud of. Again, without the support, women in STEM at UniSA, but also Women in STEM Australia being given the platform to connect with people such as yourself, but also that supportive environment where you're told it's okay to be proud, it's okay to be loud about it, it's okay, to post it on LinkedIn. For me, that has, just been absolutely the biggest win. I've just, been thoroughly enjoying my time over the last couple of years and my growth, and having the support and the network of women such as yourself.
Oh, Stephanie, I'm in awe, of what you've just shared, and do let me know if what else I can do to support you and your endeavours. And I think the corporate world is extremely fortunate that you've chosen that path, because it is the shining light with the depth and substance and gravitas of the way you think and the way you're making meaning of things, and seeing challenges as things to solve. And that, to me, is the essence of a STEM educated, STEM trained professional with a vision to contribute and do something bigger than themselves in their lives. And I'm here to thank you for your time today and for all you do. And I look forward to supporting your career as you continue to flourish.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and for the support of yours as well. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.